Hello, and welcome to another Solipsist Rambles, where this week I was going to talk about something entirely different, but instead I have discovered a landmine, and depending on how this goes, I may be choosing to step on it. Today I found out that a game that I like, Slay the Spire 2, is currently the source of some consternation and controversy, and has been the subject of review bombing on Steam. This is apparently because somebody discovered the name Anita Sarkeesian in the credits as a consultant. Now, some of you may already have your hackles up based on that name, and some of you may not have any reference or knowledge, and some of you may know it but not care. I am going to try and keep the scope of this video very limited, because this could go on for hours. But in very brief, if you're not already familiar, Anita Sarkeesian, in the early to basically all the way through the 2010s, was one of the most hated women or people in general on the internet and in gaming in general. And this is basically just because a bunch of terminally online boys in basements, what we would now probably call incels, decided to harass her for having a take. And she became the target of a lot of a dedicated harassment campaign for several years that obviously it should go without saying she did not deserve. However, Anita Sarkeesian is a polarizing figure for a lot of reasons. I also don't like Anita Sarkeesian, but not for any of the other reasons that most people are, or the certain type of people are. And if it's not already abundantly clear, I am not following in the footsteps of whoever this group of people are who are review bombing Slay the Spire 2 or trying to refund the game. None of that matters to me. That's not going to change my opinion on the game, but it does get to what our final conclusion in this video will be. I have a bunch of problems with Anita Sarkeesian, and they start way before the harassment campaign that she suffered. As you will note, based on the age of my channel predates Anita Sarkeesian's appearance on the gaming scene by several years, at least in a notable way, and certainly before her rise to true infamy. And back then, back before her infamy, I actually actively watched her content for a while. I have always, as should be apparent, been very interested in gaming and games media and gaming as it relates to literature and culture and all these other things. There's a lot to unpack about gaming. It is, as a media source, a representation of our collective culture, and so what it represents, whether positive or negative, is always relevant for critique. In very brief, my memory of Anita Sarkeesian before and after everything that happened was that she was a very mediocre YouTuber, basically. She had some incredibly mid takes, and often ones that were very uninformed, and other times ones that were just framed as though they were factual but were basically opinion. I've sort of buried the lead here. I realize that, and I should clarify for those who don't know. Anita Sarkeesian's main thing is about feminism and female representation in games and the games industry. And she does have some very good salient points about the problems in the games industry, both within it as women's representation in the work environments and the media representation as producers of media, but also the representation of women in that media itself, female characters in games. There is a lot of very good critique to be made about how women are represented in both of those spheres. However, Anita Sarkeesian's takes have been mid at best in my memory, because as of late, I haven't gone and seen anything she's done in quite a long time. However, this harassment campaign that she suffered was, as I said, obviously completely undeserved. But Anita Sarkeesian does really like to stir shit, as far as I can tell. She's incredibly unapologetic for her takes, regardless of how good or bad they may be. And so it is very hard to sort the wheat from the chaff. It is very hard for me, both back then and now, to say she has some salient points, because people will then only hear, oh, you like her and agree with everything she says. Because welcome to the internet, there's no room for nuance. And unfortunately, that will not change probably ever. The internet is just, that's how it is. It's a very mob mentality kind of thing, and there isn't a lot of room, as I've multiple times talked about on this channel and in this series, there isn't a lot of room for nuance. And so when Anita, over both before and after all the events that happened to her, continued to make media in a way that was extremely outspoken and dubiously well written, that really did not do her public persona any favors. Now, I want to be clear that I don't think that I'm not advocating that, hey, if you're the target of a harassment campaign, the only thing you can do is run and hide your tail between your legs. But continuing to kick the hornet's nest is usually not good for you. And it's certainly, if you're intending to stay in that role for the years to come, it is not usually a good idea to keep poisoning your name, which is basically what happened. So we have somebody who then proceeded basically to make a career out of, in a way, being the most hated woman in gaming. And for the public perception, where she would basically only come up in discussion ever, being raised as an argument by the type of people who did not have good intentions for her name. So her persona has always been poisoned. Now, as I've said, I think I have plenty of critiques for her, and I don't think that she's a good representative regardless. Even if none of the events that happened had happened, I don't think she would be good. And generally speaking, there is another timeline where none of those events happened and she was never the target of this agitation, and she just faded into irrelevancy, just like so many other YouTubers who made mid content that that wasn't very good and nobody really cared about. But really, her existence, her continued existence in this cultural space, is mainly because of her role as the subject of harassment. That's pretty bad for a whole bunch of reasons that I think should be self-evident. And I am confused, but I'm not going to unpack why she was hired as a consultant for Slay the Spire 2, or really for any video game. If you look at her body of work, I think, to me, it's relatively obvious that she does not have a particularly nuanced take or insightful background on a lot of things. Not only is she not a good game critic, she's a poor journalist, and she also in everything I've ever seen her speak about, is a terrible advocate for feminism or women's rights in general. And I would argue that, in fact, she's done dramatically more damage than help to both females in the game industry and in the world in general. Her damage to feminism is uncountable and will never be recovered. It will have to be, the damage done will have to be rebuilt in other ways. That's just basically my view on it. She's a terrible advocate for feminism, and it's a shame. So again, I'm not going to speculate why she was hired as a consultant. But the point that I'm wrapping this around to is that both from the perspective of Anita and of the developers of Slay the Spire 2, it baffles me why this would come to pass. Her name is effectively a poison pill. Even if she was the most insightful even if she was the most insightful consultant and had completely unique views and takes, there should be a perception, there is a continued perception in the games industry that her name is so associated with the events of 10 plus years ago that she really her name cannot be on stuff. It is damaging to your product. And so I cannot believe that the Slay the Spire developers weren't aware of her role and that her presence would have an effect. I think they may have underestimated how much of an effect it would have. And unfortunately, we are so far from the events that actually occurred now 12 plus years. I think just about 12 years. That there are multiple generations of new, big air quotes and derogatory gamers who were not there for the events that unfolded, who do not understand the history and can't, even with retellings of it, that will hate her anyway, purely because they know her name and its associations. I don't know really what to do about that, and I don't want to say that your only option is to leave the industry or to change your name or something, but I don't know. It just seems like a bad idea on everybody's... everybody made the wrong decision here, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Her presence is not going to be welcomed. At best, it will be tolerated by people. I don't really care that she's there. I don't know what she had influence on, and I don't care. But there will be for a long time going into the future, poison attached to her name that will damage whatever product she works on. And so I'm just completely baffled to see this new conduct coming out, that she's even present in the games industry anymore is a surprise to me, let alone that she's actively consulting on games that are big names as well. To be totally honest, if I had to give the Slay the Spire devs the most possible benefit of the doubt, even if they hired her intentionally and knew everything of her background, I think I probably would have insisted that her name not end up in the credits, or that it be under a pseudonym or a company name instead, because wow, it's bad. This was a weird surprise for me to see today, and just another in the long list of things that I didn't think I'd be running into in 2026 from long in the past. What a weird thing to come up. Yeah. So in summary, maybe you hate, if you've gotten to the end of this video and you're seething with rage and about to write me something nasty in the comments, then by all means, but listen to this first. You hate Anita Sarkeesian because you think she was attacking your precious video games and the only thing you had. I hate Anita Sarkeesian because I think she has incredibly boring takes and is a bad advocate for women and didn't go far enough. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.